There are people online that keep saying Big Meech sacrificed Cuffy. But here's the thing: the paperwork, the timelines, the federal investigation, and even the sentencing don't all tell the exact same story. Some people believe Meech knowingly connected Cuffy to somebody cooperating with the federal government. Others say there's still no direct proof Meech knowingly lined anybody up at all. And now, people are looking at Cuffy's 27-year sentence and asking even more questions. Because according to federal court records, Cuffy pled guilty to major drug conspiracies, firearm charges connected to deaths, and ordering murders tied to suspected informants. So when somebody connected to charges that serious get only 27 years instead of life, people start wondering what really happened behind the scenes. And right now, we're going to break it down: the timelines, the paperwork, the cooperation theories, the sentencing, and the contradictions that turn this entire situation into one of the biggest internet debates tied to BMF in years. One reason this story exploded online is because it hits every nerve the internet reacts to emotionally: street politics, loyalty, betrayal, federal informants, BMF history, paperwork culture, prison politics, and conspiracy theories. This isn't just another celebrity topic. People are emotionally invested in this one. Because for some people, Big Meech represents loyalty and street legacy. So the second paperwork and informant discussions started circulating, the internet instantly split into two sides. One side says Meech absolutely knew, the other side says there's still no direct proof. And honestly, that's what makes this topic so dangerous online. Because once people emotionally pick a side, every single document gets interpreted through emotion. The core argument keeps coming back to one question: what exactly did Meech know? And when did he know it? That's the entire debate. Because almost everybody agrees Tammy Cowens eventually cooperated. That part isn't really the controversy anymore. The controversy is, did Meech knowingly participate in connecting people to somebody cooperating with the federal government? Or was he himself unaware of what was happening behind the scenes? And that's a massive difference. Because online, people tend to collapse every event together like it all happened simultaneously. But federal investigations don't work like that. Timelines matter. For people unfamiliar with the story, Tammy Cowens became heavily connected to BMF business and entertainment operations. Over time, her name became associated with federal cooperation discussions and testimony connected to people around BMF circles. And once paperwork started surfacing online, people immediately began analyzing old relationships, introductions, meetings, and timelines. Some people argue Meech unknowingly connected people through Tammy before fully understanding the situation. Others believe somebody with Meech's level of experience should have recognized warning signs earlier. And because there's emotion attached to BMF history, people are analyzing every detail like detectives. One of the strongest arguments Meech supporters continue bringing up is the timeline itself. Because according to some people studying the case, federal investigations tied to Cuffy and others may have already been active years before. Tammy became the center of attention online. That's important because if investigators already had wiretaps, informants, surveillance, or ongoing federal interests, then the idea that one person suddenly caused everything becomes harder to prove. And honestly, this is where a lot of internet discussions become oversimplified. People want one villain, one betrayal, one explanation, but federal cases are usually much messier than that. Now, to be fair, there are plenty of people who believe Meech understood much more than supporters want or admit. Some argue Meech was too experienced, too connected, and too smart not to recognize certain things happening around him. Others believe responsibility still falls on whoever introduced people together, regardless of what they personally knew at the time. And from a street politics perspective, a lot of people care more about outcomes than legal technicalities. Meaning, if somebody gets federally indicted, people automatically start asking who connected the dots. But there's one contradiction people defending Meech continue pointing toward, and honestly, it's hard to ignore. If Meech knowingly participated from the beginning, then why would there later allegedly be warnings about paperwork and cooperation becoming exposed? Why would panic or concern even exist later on? From the perspective of Meech supporters, that behavior doesn't fully make sense if everything was already known from day one. Now, here's where the story becomes even more controversial online. Cuffy didn't get life, he got 27 years in federal prison. And for a lot of people, that immediately raised eyebrows. Because according to federal court records, Cuffy pled guilty to major cocaine and heroin conspiracies, firearms charges connected to deaths, and ordering murders tied to suspected informants. So, when people saw somebody tied to charges that serious avoid a life sentence, the internet immediately started asking, how? Now, legally speaking, there are many reasons federal sentences can end up lower than the public expects. Plea agreements, avoiding trial, federal sentencing guidelines, negotiated recommendations, providing information, strategic cooperation, or prosecutors prioritizing bigger targets. And according to court records, both sides jointly recommended the 27-year sentence. That alone became gasoline for internet theories because a lot of people online simply do not expect somebody tied to charges this serious to avoid life in federal court. Now, this is where people need to separate facts from internet assumptions. Cuffy pled guilty. He received 27 years. The sentence was jointly recommended. But where debate begins is what those facts actually mean. Some people online believe the sentence strongly suggests cooperation behind the scenes. Others argue federal plea deals happen far more often than the public realizes. And unless direct documentation explicitly proves cooperation agreements, a lot of people are filling in the blanks themselves. One thing people continue demanding online is wiretaps, because many people feel the internet is reaching conclusions, mostly through interpretations of paperwork and testimony. And testimony alone will always create debate, especially in federal cases involving informants. A lot of people online keep saying, forget opinions, forget emotions, show the recordings, because recordings remove interpretation. What makes this story different from a lot of internet debates is the emotional attachment people already had to BMF history before any paperwork surfaced. This isn't just some random federal case. For many people, BMF became bigger than life. So once conversations about informants and betrayal entered the picture, people reacted emotionally first. And honestly, one of the biggest problems with internet culture today is people rush to conclusions immediately. Everybody wants a definitive answer instantly. He knew, he didn't know, case closed. But reality usually isn't that simple, especially in federal investigations involving years of surveillance, multiple informants, sealed records, plea deals, and overlapping investigations. And honestly, this situation feels far more complicated than people online want to admit. Based on the publicly discussed paperwork and timelines, there still appears to be major debate surrounding what Meech knew, when he knew it, and how much involvement he actually had. Some people believe the timeline raises questions, others believe the sentence raises questions. Others think the internet is reaching for conclusions without enough direct evidence. But one thing is undeniable: the story has become bigger than paperwork now. It's become a battle over legacy, reputation, street credibility, and public perception. And until more recordings, more paperwork, or more direct evidence surfaces, people are probably going to argue this case for years, because right now, everybody's looking at the same puzzle pieces, but they're definitely completely different pictures. So, what do y'all think? Does the timeline clear Meech, or does Cuffy's sentence in the paperwork raise more questions than answers? Y'all let me know what y'all think in the comments. It's the pressure room. Like, share, subscribe.